Osaka Castle, 1598. The annual tournament before the emperor. Ryota, age 22, the pride of his dojo, undefeated in 17 consecutive duels, stepped into the arena before 3,000 spectators. His opponent? A nobody. A ronin from the mountains with no formal training, no reputation, no credentials. The duel lasted 8 seconds. Ryota froze. His mind went blank. His body refused to move, and the ronin's wooden sword struck him across the face once, twice, 3 times before he even raised his weapon. The crowd fell silent. Then came the laughter, then the whispers, then the shame that would follow him for 3 years. Miyamoto Musashi wrote, "You can only fight the way you practice. But here's what nobody tells you. You can also only live the way you practice. And when you stop practicing, when you lose your discipline, your purpose, your identity, you don't just fail at your craft, you fail at being yourself." This is the story of a warrior who lost everything. Not to injury, not to a superior opponent, but to something far more devastating. He lost himself. And the journey back from that darkness, that's the real warrior's path nobody talks about. The question isn't whether you'll fall, it's whether you'll find your way back when you do. 3 days after the duel, Ryota sat alone in his family's estate, staring at the sword he could no longer bear to touch. 22 years of training, 17 victories, his master's praise, his father's pride, all destroyed in 8 seconds. The bruises on his face would heal, the wound to his spirit. That was something else entirely. He replayed the moment endlessly. The ronin approaching, the crowd watching, the signal to begin, and then nothing. Just a void where his training should have been. And in that emptiness, he discovered something terrifying. He didn't know who he was anymore. His entire life, Ryota had been the warrior. His identity was his discipline. His purpose was his practice. His self-worth was his skill. And in 8 seconds, it was all revealed as a lie. Something so fragile that one moment of pressure could shatter it completely. He tried to return to training. His hands shook. His master, Taida Sensei, watched with concern. "Ryota, you're gripping too tightly." "I know." But he couldn't stop. Every movement felt wrong, mechanical, dead. "Perhaps you need rest." "I don't need rest, I need—" He didn't know what he needed. After an hour, his master approached. "Go home, Ryota. Come back when you're ready." "I am ready." "No. You're here, but you're not present." The words hit harder than any sword. That night, for the first time in 8 years, he skipped his evening practice. It felt like relief, like removing armor he'd been wearing for too long. He stopped going to the dojo entirely. Days became weeks. He began drinking, just enough to quiet the voice in his head screaming, "Failure, coward, fraud!" His father confronted him. "You shame our family. I already did that. What's a little more? You dishonor your training. My training betrayed me." The words erupted. "I trained my entire life, and when it mattered, I froze. My practice was worthless. I was living a lie." His father slapped him. "Then rebuild." "I can't." "You mean you won't?" "I mean I don't know who I am anymore. The warrior I thought I was, he never existed. So who am I supposed to rebuild?" His father left without an answer. Ryota descended fully. He spent his days sleeping, his nights drinking, wasting his family's money on sake and gambling. The disciplined warrior who once woke before dawn now couldn't rise before noon. One night, drunk and stumbling through Osaka's streets, he encountered a group of samurai from his old dojo. Kenji, a former training partner, looked shocked. "Ryota, is that you?" Unshaven, unwashed, unrecognizable. "What happened to you?" "I found out who I really am." His words slurred. Not the warrior everyone thought, just nothing. Kenji's expression shifted to pity. That pity hurt more than any insult. "Come back to the dojo. Master Taida can help." "He can't fix me. Nobody can. There's nothing left to fix." He stumbled away into the darkness, rock bottom. A monk found him collapsed in an alley, barely conscious. The monk, old, with eyes sharp despite his age, looked down without judgment. You're dying. Good. Not of hunger, of absence. You've removed yourself from existence while still breathing. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. You lost a duel, and because you couldn't face that loss, you decided to lose everything else as well. The words pierced through Ryota's numbness. Who are you? Someone who walked the same path you're on. Except I reached the end. And what's at the end? Death or rebirth, your choice. But you must choose soon. If you want to find the other path, come to Koyasan Temple, third bell after dawn. Why would I come? Because despite everything, some part of you still wants to live, not just breathe. Live. 3 days later, Ryota arrived at Koyasan Temple, unwashed and hungover. The monk, Bodhidharma, gestured to a mat. Sit. For an hour, they sat in silence. Ryota's mind screamed. Finally. Why am I here? Because you've lost yourself. And you think that's the problem. It is the problem. No, Bodhidharma's voice was firm. The problem is, you think there was ever a self to lose. Ryota was confused. Tell me, who were you before the duel? A warrior, disciplined, skilled, honorable. And those things, were they you, or were they what you did? What's the difference? Everything. Bodhidharma lit incense. The warrior you thought you were, the one built on 17 victories and your family's expectations. He never really existed. He was a construct, an identity built on external things. Then what am I supposed to be? Nothing. Everything. You don't need to be anything. You need to do. I don't understand. You can only fight the way you practice. MushaShi said this. It means identity doesn't exist in a fixed state. It exists in action. You are not a warrior who sometimes trains. You are your training. You are your practice. But I tried that, and it failed. No, you built an identity on outcomes, on winning, on others' opinions. That's not practice. That's performance. And performance crumbles under pressure. Bodhidharma's voice grew deeper. Throughout history, warriors have faced this truth, that the self you think you are is an illusion, and in times you cannot imagine, others will face your same crisis. Young men who built everything on achievement, on others' approval, only to lose it all in one moment of failure. The warrior path isn't about never losing yourself. It's about finding the way back when you do. Ryota felt something shift. Recognition. So, how do I rebuild? You don't rebuild who you were. You build from nothing. Tomorrow, we start. The next day. Today, you will practice your first sword form. I've practiced forms 10,000 times. No. Today, you practice for the first time. Everything before is dead. It felt insulting, but Ryota had nothing left to lose. Bodhidharma handed him a wooden sword. The moment Ryota's hand wrapped around it, it trembled. He dropped it. Good, said Bodhidharma. What you're feeling is progress. For 6 months, you felt nothing. Now you feel fear. That's better than emptiness. I can't do this. Correct. The old Ryota can't. But the Ryota being born right now, he has no past failures. He's picking up a sword for the first time. That's not true. Make it true. That's what practice is. Ryota picked up the sword again, hand still trembling. He raised it. His muscle memory tried to activate the perfect form. Stop. You're performing. There is no right. There is only now. Move. This was harder than any training he'd ever done. Every impulse screamed to execute the perfect form, but Bodhidharma kept stopping him. Again, no thought, just breath and movement. 50 repetitions, each one terrible by technical standards, but each one more present. By the end, Ryota was exhausted. How was that? Terrible. My form was awful. No. Your technique was alive. For the first time in years, you weren't performing. You were present. That's the foundation. Every day, the same practice. Basic forms. Ryota's ego screamed, "I'm better than this." That voice, Bodhidharma observed, is the old identity trying to resurrect itself. Let it scream. Return to breath. Return to movement. Slowly, something else emerged. Not the perfect warrior, just Ryota. Present, imperfect, real. One morning, he raised the sword and felt no tremor, no fear, just movement. His form wasn't perfect, but it was his. Bodhidharma nodded. You're ready for the next stage, learning who you are when you're not trying to be anything. 4 months in, a traveler arrived, a samurai seeking challenges. Bodhidharma approached Ryota. He's issued a challenge. I'm offering you the opportunity to accept. Every fiber of Ryota's being screamed, no. Memories flooded back. I can't. Correct. The old Ryota can't. But the Ryota who has practiced presence for 4 months, what does he choose? I'm not ready. Ready for what? To win? To prove something? Those are old patterns. I'm asking, are you present enough to step into the arena and simply be there, outcome irrelevant? The question shifted his perspective. Not, can I win? But can I be present? I'll do it. In the temple courtyard, Ryota faced the challenger. He drew his sword and waited. The Ronin attacked, fast, aggressive. The old Ryota would have frozen. The new Ryota simply responded. Not from memory, not from fear, from presence. The duel lasted 3 minutes. No decisive victor. When they separated, breathing hard, Ryota realized something profound. He had been present the entire time. Win or lose had become irrelevant. The victory was being fully there. The Ronin bowed deeply. You are the most present opponent I have faced. Higher praise than any victory. Bodhidharma approached. How do you feel? I don't know. Not proud, not ashamed. Just here. Good. That is mastery. Not achieving something, being something. Ryota's story shows that the path back from failure isn't about reclaiming what you lost. It's about building something new, something real, from the ground up, one present moment at a time. 6 months into his training, Ryota's days were a relentless cycle of practice. Not just technique, but presence. His routine was ironclad. Wake at 4 a.m., no exceptions. Zazen meditation for 90 minutes, 2 hours of sword forms, temple duties, afternoon study, physical conditioning, free practice. Evening meditation, reflection, then sleep. This wasn't about motivation, it was about commitment. Bodhidharma taught that identity isn't rebuilt through grand gestures, but through consistent, present action. But discipline alone wasn't enough. You must face what you're hiding from, Bodhidharma told him one evening. Ryota insisted he wasn't hiding. You're hiding from the shame of the tournament, the master countered. You've trained presence, but you haven't faced the wound that caused your collapse. He made Ryota recount the tournament in excruciating detail. Every moment, every sensation, every wave of emotion. The words came haltingly at first, choked with pain, the freeze, the crowd's laughter, the crushing disgrace, the shattering of his identity. Tears streamed down his face, not of weakness, but of release. Good, Bodhidharma said. The wound isn't weakness. The refusal to acknowledge it creates weakness. Now it's out. Now it can heal. Months later, during a deep meditation, Ryota's mind fell completely silent. In that stillness, a profound awareness arose. He saw that his journey, from loss to rebuilding, was a path walked by warriors across all time. The descent into darkness, the struggle back to light, and the ultimate discovery that the self he lost was never real to begin with. Here at Presence and Purpose, we honor this truth. Losing yourself isn't the end. It's the beginning of finding who you truly are, beneath the performance and the persona. This teaching is for those who've fallen, who've failed, who've lost everything and don't know how to rebuild. not with fleeting motivation, but with a proven method. Daily practice. Present action. If you're in that darkness now, if you've lost yourself and can't find the way back, join us every week. The practices that rebuilt Ryota can rebuild anyone willing to commit. The way back exists, but only for those who stop trying to return to who they were and instead build from presence who they are now. 2 years into his training, Ryota's transformation was complete. He wasn't the polished warrior he was before the tournament. He was more real, more present, less perfect. His technique had improved, but that wasn't the point. His presence had deepened. That was everything. Other students watched him, no longer impressed by his perfection, but by his authenticity. "How did you come back?" one asked. Ryota replied, "I didn't come back. That person is dead. I built forward." 3 years after he arrived, Bodhidharma announced, "Return to Osaka. You're ready." Ready for what? To face what you fled, the tournament, the arena, the moment that broke you. Fear surged through Ryota. "I don't need to," he protested. "Yes, you do," the master insisted. "Not to prove anything, to complete the circle, to face the place of your death and show yourself you've been reborn." Reluctantly, Ryota agreed. They traveled to the castle where the annual tournament was held. Same arena, same crowd. This time he wasn't competing, he was just observing. Then a voice called out his name. It was his former master. "You disappeared," the old man said, his eyes filled with a mix of shock and curiosity. "I lost myself," Ryota bowed, "and spent 3 years finding a way back." "And did you?" his master asked, studying him. "I found a way forward, not back." "You're different." "I'm present," Ryota said. "I wasn't before." "Will you compete?" The question hung in the air. Every instinct screamed no. The old fear rose. What if I freeze again? But then a new thought took its place. Outcome is irrelevant. Presence is everything. "Yes," he heard himself say. By a twist of fate, Ryota's opponent was the same Ronin who had defeated him 3 years ago. The crowd murmured, "The rematch." They bowed, drew their swords, and the duel began. And Ryota was there, completely. Not performing, not proving, just present. The Ronin attacked, and Ryota flowed with him. No freeze, no fear, just response. It was a beautiful duel, not for its technical perfection, but for the complete presence of both fighters. When they finished, there was no clear victor, only mutual respect. The crowd erupted, but Ryota barely heard them. The real victory wasn't the duel. It was being fully present in the moment that had once destroyed him. Afterward, the Ronin approached him. 3 years ago, you froze. Today, you flowed. What changed? Ryota smiled. I stopped being the warrior who never loses and became the warrior who shows up. Win or lose, I'm here. That, the Ronin said with a nod, is mastery. Back at the temple, Ryota sat with Bodhidharma. I understand now what Miyamoto Musashi meant, he said. You can only fight the way you practice. Bodhidharma nodded. Tell me. It doesn't just mean perfecting your technique. It means how you live is how you perform under pressure. For years, I practiced being the perfect warrior. When I couldn't deliver perfection, I shattered. Then, for 3 years, I practiced being present, daily, imperfectly, authentically. So when pressure came again, I had practiced being present under pressure. There was no freeze, only flow. Exactly, Bodhidharma affirmed. Your daily practice is your identity, not your achievements, not your reputation, but what you actually do, moment to moment, when nobody is watching. Most warriors fear losing a duel, but the real loss is losing yourself. And that doesn't happen in a single dramatic moment. It happens in the small choices you make every day. When you skip practice, when you perform instead of being present, when you attach your worth to outcomes. Each small choice weakens your foundation. Then pressure comes, and the foundation collapses. The way back isn't dramatic either. It's small, consistent, present actions, building a new foundation from nothing. You lost yourself, Ryota, but that loss became your greatest teacher. Because now you know, an identity built on achievement is fragile. An identity built on daily practice is unbreakable. 6 months later, a young, defeated samurai arrived at the temple, his spirit crushed. Ryota saw himself from 3 years ago. "Can you help me?" the young man pleaded. "I can teach you what I learned," Ryota said. "But you must do the work." "I'll do anything." "Good," Ryota replied, leading him to the practice grounds. "Your first lesson is Musashi's wisdom. You can only fight the way you practice. Do you understand?" "I think so," the young man said. "No," Ryota countered gently. "Not yet, but you will. This wisdom isn't about sword fighting. It's about life. Everything you do daily, every choice, every action, that's your practice. When pressure comes, you'll respond exactly how you've practiced. If you practice being present, you'll be present. If you practice performing, you'll shatter when the performance fails." He handed the young man a practice sword. This teaching continues here, at Presence and Purpose. It's for those who've lost themselves and seek the way back, not to who they were, but to who they can become. Every week, we rebuild, not with motivation, but with method, not with perfection, but with presence, not trying to impress, just showing up. If you recognize yourself in this story, walk with us. Subscribe to this path. The journey from lost to found is one we all eventually walk. The question isn't if you'll lose yourself, but whether you'll commit to finding the way back. The young man bowed. "Where do I start?" Ryota demonstrated the first sword form. "Not from memory," he said, "from presence. We'll practice every day until presence becomes who you are, not just what you do." The young man followed, imperfectly, authentically, present. The circle continued. Student became teacher. Lost became found. Practice being present. Practice being real. Practice showing up. That is the way back. That is the warrior's path. Thanks for watching.